Yeah, I'm triggered. I'm mad. Saw Bromley's video dissing powerlifting. And it's killing your gains. Wink, wink. The only thing I'm mad about is he didn't go harder. It was a well said video. I have very much similar thoughts that he put out in that video. He articulates them a lot better than I do. That would probably explain why his channel is way bigger. But yeah, especially, the specialization. When you get to a certain level, to progress within the sport of powerlifting, you are going to have to specialize at that point, to eke out the next set of gains. But it doesn't need to be early on. Like, even if ultimately you want to be the best powerlifter you can possibly be, early on in training should be very general. I'm not saying like never squat, bench, and deadlift. Honestly, those should be staple movements in your programming. But they should be done in a fashion where you still have energy for other more general movements. Obviously, like, some GPP stuff, pulling and pushing sleds can be in there. Focusing on some other muscle groups, some supporting muscle groups, some muscle groups that maybe have fuck all to do with powerlifting, but they're good to generally have. And building those muscles and building work capacity and conditioning. A lot of powerlifters who specialize early are in terrible shape. They may look aesthetically pretty good, but their work capacity may be shit. And you get a lot of cases where people will specialize in technique. You see this with a lot of like the younger, sumo deadlift crowd now, especially with the deadlift bars. You're seeing very skinny looking people. They're pulling big weights. They're still strong. I'm not disrespecting their strength, of course, but you can tell that they're lacking. They're not extremely muscular, and there's some pretty wild ratios between their squat, bench, and then their phenomenal deadlifts. So taking that time to develop the bigger picture first is only going to lead to a higher ceiling later on. You may, with early specialization, you may get to that ceiling sooner, but that ceiling is probably going to be lower than if you took the general route. And I would, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying do this specifically, but take something like a 5-3-1. If you're early in your training, do that template as it's written. I like the boring but big variant to get you some volume in there. And again, don't neglect GPB, conditioning, some isolation movements, etc. And, run something like that. Still sign up for meets, because he was right. The barrier to entry is 0 for powerlifting. As long as you can squat, bench, and deadlift the bar, you can do a powerlifting meet. But run something general like that. And compete in meets, but don't peak for them. Just, maybe, take a few days off before the meet. Time it up after, the end portion of one of your training cycles. But don't peak for the meet. Just do the meet. Like, get experience at the meet environment, how to warm up, what foods to bring. Bringing wet wipes and toilet paper, figuring out where the bathrooms are before you need them. Things like that. Get good experience, all right? Learn how to lift to the meet standards with the judges, with a bunch of eyes on you. That can be disheartening for some people. Some people thrive on it. But compete in meets, absolutely. There are pros and cons to the very low barrier of entry, but that is the biggest pro, is that you can get experience from day one almost, with very little pressure. Chances are at a local meet, depending upon what weight class you're in, you can win by default by being the only one there. But that shouldn't even be a factor early on. Just gaining the experience, making friends. You might find a coach there. You might find a group of people to train with, things like that. But yeah, he nailed most of the video. Train very generally early on, save the specialization for later, and in my opinion, it's going to be better. Again, you won't reach your ceiling as soon, but your ceiling is ultimately going to be higher. And I'm going to touch on this real quick. I wish I would have said this sooner. Don't limit yourself to a weight class. He nailed that part too. I'm not saying Gigabulk can get super fat, but don't set out, starting powerlifting as, a teenager, early 20s, something like that. You weigh like $160 right now. Don't say, oh, I'm going to just stay in the 165-pound weight class. Like, as you're training, as you're getting stronger, you should be eating to facilitate that and growing, and let yourself grow into a weight class. Again, ceiling's going to be higher as such. Maybe you're slightly more competitive now as a 165, but 10 years down the road, you let yourself consistently grow and you get stronger and you eat more, you're going to be elite at 198, whereas you were slightly more competitive early on at 165, but you limited yourself and you never really progressed like you should have. And you're just shit out of luck at this point. So yeah, he nailed it. Like I said, I wish he would have went harder. I saw the title, of course, and as a power lifter, buckle up, buckaroos, get ready. I want to be angry, but Bromley has been around for a long time, and it shows. Peace. Morning.